There we go. Hello, my name is Trish Agel Roberts, and welcome to the Mind Blowing Happiness podcast. Today, we're talking to global yoga and meditation instructor and author of Spiritually Fly, Faith Hunter. How are you, Faith?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, first off, I'm working from my phone notes. So I just want to share that with anybody who's looking because it's already disappearing. So here we go. There's a cheat sheet. But so I met Faith first at the Love Shine Play Festival in Asheville, North Carolina, a little over a year ago.
hmm
And we were talking about her book. So she had her book out, and I had my 12 Steps to Mind Blowing Happiness. So I'm just so excited to have you on the show with me today. And
Thank
before
you.
we get started, I want to read a little bit from your bio.
Okay, go
I
for it.
learned. Yes, I learned some things.
Mm.
So Faith has graced the covers of Yoga Journal twice. She's appeared on Wendy Williams and The Real Housewives of Potomac, and she's been featured in Black Enterprise, Women's Health, Shape, New York, Yoga, and Essence magazines. She's an exclusive yoga and wellness expert for Beachbody, iFit, Nordic Track, Fitbit, and the Meditation Studio app. She's represented brands such as Athleta, Foot Locker, Lululemon, and more. And she's the author of two books. So the first one was Shades of the Soul, which is poetry and inspiration. And her latest is Spiritually Fly, wisdom, meditations, and yoga to elevate your soul. So first off, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your backstory. How did you choose yoga as a career?
Wow. Wow. Well, it's always interesting first to hear people read my bio. And I'm like, oh, I've been a busy girl.
I saw your facial expression when I was reading. You like, who, me?
She's talking about me. But because that is, thinking about all that life that I've experienced and all the life that's been lifing, right? The interesting part is that I started practicing yoga in the 90s. My older brother, Michael, was dealing with complications related to AIDS, and he was on his really the downward spiral. Those last few months were excruciating, and that's actually when I started practicing meditation and yoga. I started practicing actually Kundalini yoga, and then I spent probably another 8 years being a student, right? And I'm still a student now, but meaning that's all I did. And I had another really interesting life change and shift. I changed careers. I was like, okay, I don't want to work in nonprofit anymore. Quit my job, moved to New York. I was living in DC at the time. Quit my job in DC, moved to New York. And that's when I had like a summer of just bouncing around to all the yoga studios in New York because,
Hmm.
everybody had like that free week you can pay for.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I'll like, do a free week or like buy a $10 pass and I can like take classes for the next 2 weeks and then blah, blah, blah. So I was doing all of that. And then I popped into this yoga studio. At the time it was called Laughing Lotus Yoga Center. It was on Christopher Street in the lower east side, or in the village, I should say. And they had this sign that said, we're doing a yoga teacher training info session. And I was like,
Hmm. What's that?
what's that? And then I start thinking about it. I was like, well, even when I was in my nonprofit days, I would randomly do workshops on being present. Um,
Mm,
because my boss one day was like, you're always so calm. Can you, we need to get
mm.
other people calm. I was like, well, I go to yoga. And I was like, well, maybe this might be interesting. And so I decided to become a yoga teacher years after simply studying and being present with myself. And the one of the reasons why I was like, well, this is not just me becoming a yoga teacher and continuing on my nonprofit, or at the time I was working for EMI record company, not just doing that. as I went through yoga teacher training, I realized that there was a gift, and I had a gift. I had a gift
Mm,
of supporting people in a really powerful way. And I'm like, oh my God, all of these years in nonprofit was just preparing me for this moment, because that's all I was doing for many years, was supporting other nonprofits,
mm.
and being their best selves as an organization. But now I'm like, I can really have an impact on people and touch them individually.
So when you first started teaching, you were still at the nonprofit. Did you teach part-time and then you made the leap at some point to
Yeah,
full-time or?
actually, when I enrolled in yoga teacher training, I was doing consulting work. So um, I
So you were self-employed?
I was somewhat self-employed, but then every now and then I'd like take a full-time job somewhere and then quit it.
Entrepreneurs, we don't really want to work for other people, like there's just a different
Yeah.
freedom.
Or I'll make a deal with the organization. It's like, I really love you guys, love your mission, but I don't want to work here. I don't want to show up every day because I have other interests. I have so many other interests. And the other interest is that I'd rather teach a yoga class at 12 o'clock, or go on retreat and like support one of my senior teachers. And so that's what I ended up doing. Yeah.
And then where did Spiritually Fly come from? Because I love that. Because I'm old
Thank you.
school and fly, we want it to be fly.
I
They're
know.
kind of
I
switched
mean,
now.
people don't,
They
I mean,
still want to be
I was born in the 1900s. So, we're pretty fly. But yeah, so the name Spiritually Fly actually showed up when I left New York and moved back to DC. And that's when I decided to open up a yoga studio in Mount Vernon Triangle, part of DC. And one of my students came in. I would always teach yoga or a yoga class on a Sunday morning. So she comes into my yoga class, takes class. It was a regular student. I'd seen her on a regular. And she goes, wow, I'm having this struggle with my pastor because I keep showing up here on Sunday mornings taking yoga instead of going to church. I was like, ooh. So sorry about that, but I'll see you next Sunday.
Yeah.
Um, and so after class, she was like, I have to figure out what I'm going to do about this. She shows up the following Sunday, of course. And I'd seen her, other times during the week, but she didn't really say too much during the week. She shows up the following Sunday and I was like, so why are you here? Why did you decide to pick us instead of going to church? And she said, because this experiences, these moments that I'm having here are so spiritually grounding, spiritually urban, spiritually fly.
Hmm.
And I was like, spiritually fly. And so I told my business partner, I had a business partner at the time with my first studio. And I told her, I was like, I'm changing the name of this class on Sunday. And she goes, what is it going to be? I said, it's going to be called Spiritually Fly. She goes, what is that? I said, I don't know. But I know it must be something that people are experiencing. So I'm just going to go with it. And then from that yoga class in my first yoga studio has now evolved into a workshop. It evolved into 2-3 hour retreats and workshops. And then it started to evolve into a lifestyle, and literally almost 12 years later, it's a book.
So is it 12 years from
I think it's about 12 years. I lose
the
track of
name,
time.
when the name came to when the
Yeah.
book came out, or
Yeah.
to now?
About
Yeah,
12 years. Yeah. Yeah. Because I
I
had
love
no
it.
intention of it being a book. I mean, that was just something that rolled out many years later.
And it's a beautiful book. Wait a
Oh,
minute.
oh girl, let's both
Do you have,
flash our
do you have,
copies.
wait a minute. Where's
Oh,
mine? Wait a
this
minute.
is
Just,
my personal copy with all my little
what did
tags.
I do? I just had it with me. Okay.
It's all good.
Oh,
I
now
got it
I'm
right here.
sad. I was in this book. Oh, you know what? It's right under here. It was hiding. Oh, I was just in the darn
Oh,
book.
here,
There you go.
twinsies.
Ah, looking gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I did want you to mention or comment on one thing because you mentioned Kundalini yoga. So I
Yeah.
want you to comment a little bit on how Kundalini is different than what other people may have experienced with
Sure,
yoga.
sure. Yeah. So basically, Kundalini yoga is a very different um, yogic tradition. And one thing that makes it different is that inside of the Kundalini experience, you are really going to tap into all of what yoga, I feel like, really is. I mean, you, not saying that you can't tap into that in a hatha yoga class, but in most cases, if you're going to the gym, you're not going to experience the same thing.
Right.
You're one of the or these staples of Kundalini, you have sound current, right? So the mantra, the nod meaning sound. You're going to have your movement, your exercises, and those are going to come in the form, meaning the physical movement is going to come in the form of kriyas. And kriyas are for shifting, changing, and adjusting the energy, right? They're designed in a way to morph and move us energetically and help us step outside of ourselves so that we can come back and return to ourselves. Then you have, of course, breath work is extremely important within the Kundalini tradition. And it's more than just like in Hatha yoga, we always are doing like the Ujjayi breath. In Kundalini, you may have breath of fire, you may have cannon breath, like all of these breathing practices now just don't show up just as breathing, but they are incorporated and blending into the kriyas that are happening, the set of movements that are happening. And then meditation. So also meditation is essential or one of the foundation pieces of the Kundalini practice. So if you go take a Kundalini class, you're going to chant, of course, you're going to do a mantra, some type of sound current. You're going to do more than one breath work, right? It's more than
Okay.
just an inhale and exhale. That is always a given. And then of course, you're going to have a kriya, which are these set of postures that are going to be pulled together to elicit, right, or create some type of shift within the physical body and the mind. And then you do your shavasana, your final relaxation, you come out of that and you move into your meditative practice.
Now you got
So
me all ready to sign up for Kundalini because I haven't been in a Kundalini class. I think I may have only really done one, you know,
wow.
and the way that I always understood it was that it was to have the Kundalini rise, the
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
vibrational power from the base of your
Well,
spine.
yeah, I mean that
You
is
know,
one thing about the Kundalini practice is that it is always, I always feel when I take a practice, doesn't matter what the theme or the kriya is that all of my chakras are going to be stimulated in some shape or form.
hmm
And so that's one of the reasons why people are like, oh my God, well, I took that Kundalini class and my Kundalini energy
so
went up.
it's
Yes.
more,
Yeah,
it's more of an energetic
it's
rising.
definite, it's powerfully energetic. Yeah.
hmm And for anyone listening who is not familiar with the term chakra or kriya, do you want to give them a quick?
Sure, sure. So chakras, right? We have the chakra energy, and they're basically these energy centers within our body. So we have thousands of energy centers. Like, so if you're accustomed or you're familiar, I should say, with acupuncture or some other type of like Eastern medicine, all the energy centers that are all over our bodies. However, within Kundalini, the Hatha yoga tradition, Vedic tradition. Also, I also want to make note that even within ancient Kemet, right, the chakra energies are also the exact same. The names are just different, but the locations, the energy around them are the same. So we have like 7 primary ones that start from the base of the spine, go all the way up. Now these energy centers are also directly connected to particular aspects of who we are as individuals, as well as physical aspects within our bodies. So the lower part of our chakras, always call them, they're kind of just the way that I like to describe them is they're like the very basic type of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the foundational needs. Then you have the center of your chest. So there's 3 below, center of your chest, and then you start to move up towards your crown. And when you move up towards your crown, now you're tapping into your higher self. So it's like your relationship to self on a very basic level, but then also your relation to yourself and the divine on a higher level. When it comes to Kriyas is about action, about purpose. And so when you do a practice that is filled with Kriya, the idea is that that particular practice, that movement, that breath is going to shift something within you. So it's going to put you in action in some way. Now, that shift may be calming. You may have a Kriya that needs to soothe you and calm you, but you also may have a Kriya that needs to empower you or cleanse and purify you in some way. Yeah,
Thank you so much for that. It's
sure.
funny because, my branding is around mind-blowing happiness, which is really based on Maslow's needs hierarchy.
Oh.
And I've never thought about it in relation to the chakra system. So that gave me a little aha moment. Mind-blowing happiness is my term for the pinnacle of the hierarchy, so self-actualization. So basically
Mm,
the crown chakra. So I am
yeah.
feeling alignment right now. I'm liking I'm
I
liking that.
I always use that description because I feel like if you're not familiar with the chakras, sometimes it can be challenging and like, oh, what is this new concept? But most people have learned about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs when they were kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's perfect. So today I figured with the holidays coming up,
Mhm.
it would be a good time to talk about our topic, which is spiritually fly for the holidays. And for Thanksgiving, I love focusing on gratitude, but I realize that it can be a difficult time of year for many people because whether you're experiencing loss or loneliness or just financial struggle. It could be so many things in the
Yes,
holidays. Yeah. So I thought it would be nice to talk to you about some of the ways we can be spiritually fly, even when we're
absolutely.
dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
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 It's yeah, before I do this, I have to share stories so that people can like even understand the context as in terms of like what I'm going to offer them up. My father actually passed 7 days before Thanksgiving. Yeah,
When?
so it was 2001.
Okay.
2001. So
And I know you lost a brother.
I
Was that
lost
the
a bro-
same year?
that was my brother passed 5 years before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Mhm.
5 years before that. So it was but still, that's like a
Yeah.
short period of time to have 2 people that are very close to you. But yeah, I remember when my father, um, transitioned, and it happened pretty quickly, and it was on his birthday. It was just so many bizarre
Mm.
things that were happening. And of course, it's right before Thanksgiving. And the interesting part is that when we had his funeral and all of that, my dad was never a person that was really fussy, like, don't fuss about me, like, don't make a big deal about what's going on in my life. He was like, I'm just showing up to be present, which made me think when we had the funeral, and the next weekend our entire family was in New Orleans celebrating Thanksgiving,
Mm.
celebrating. If you're familiar with Black colleges, we were in New Orleans also enjoying Bayou Classic. So several people were coming up to us going, "What? Why are you guys here? Like, what are you
Oh,
guys here?" And so in that moment, I just remember my mom saying, "We're just here to be present and celebrate life." And so for me, I carried, and I actually later months later, started my yoga teacher journey, meaning diving in a little bit deeper. But in that moment, it made me realize it's so important to be present in the now.
hmm.
Like there are always going to be, meaning that, it's not like we're not going to grieve, which I think is really important as people move through the holiday season, to yes have gratitude for your life, for being present, but even in that moment know that it is okay to cry, it's okay to feel, it's okay to grieve, it's okay to experience all of those things emotionally. But at the end of the day, the gratitude comes into you being present and celebrating your life. And even if you've experiencing financial problems, even if you are experiencing a death of a family member during that moment, or y'all just don't get along. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it's that simple. That can cause a great deal of stress. Make time to celebrate you and be grateful for your current existence, right? The blessings that are in your life, even if they are small. Maybe that single blessing is that, you know what? I'm just grateful I woke up this morning.
That's me every morning.
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, thank you, God, I'm
Oh,
alive.
you
And then
know?
I look over to see if my dog's still breathing. See, like 16. So, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, it's going to be a good day. Today's going to be a good day. But in terms of just some practical tools is, definitely practicing gratitude. But if you're feeling challenged in some way, surround yourself with other people, because I think that's also the thing that assisted our family in moving through the trauma and the moment that we were having in terms of like my father's passing, is that we didn't seclude ourselves. We didn't like go and hide and in our family home, but we moved forward with life, meaning that we move forward with the ones that are still present. And then we still even celebrate, even now, we're there almost over 20 plus years later. There are moments where we remember, what dad would do around holidays. Because once Thanksgiving would happen, then he would start figuring out how he's going to decorate the house. So,
Yeah.
so it's like, even like those like simple little moments are just a celebration. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Buddhist book, and when I first got it, I was just like, what are they even saying? It's called Living Meaningfully, Dying Joyfully.
Mm.
I started my Buddhist journey in 2010, and I did my yoga certification 2019. But the first time I saw that book, I was just like dying joyfully. Like, what does it take to feel like that? Um, but over time, having that mindset of being grateful for your life and every day enjoying the life that you're living, so that when you do come to the end, it's not, it's really not as bad of a thing,
Yeah.
because you've been present in your life.
Yeah.
They do interviews with hospice nurses and that kind of thing, and they ask them, what do people regret? And a lot of it is what you're saying. They regret that they weren't present during the time that they were here,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But I'm going to take us through um, each one of these separately, and you can kind of chime in for. I know in the book you reference sutras, but you can
Mm-hmm.
chime in for wherever you think you have a magic secret for us. The first one, the first one you already hit on, was loneliness. Some people just feel lonely. Maybe they were only child, or your parents aren't alive, or I mean, there's so many people who come through like foster care system where maybe they really
Yeah.
never had a
Yeah.
solid family foundation,
Mm-hmm.
or may have gone through a divorce or a breakup and are
Mm-hmm.
missing someone in that way. What do you have any recommendations for how to handle loneliness? Like for me, I know I've been running a meetup group in Atlanta for a long time. It's going to be almost 10 years now. So I
Wow.
think meetup groups are fantastic. Um, any thoughts on that? Like, how do you handle loneliness?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think meetup groups are absolutely amazing. And one thing that I do, because I mean, I'm a single woman, um, I try, and I just moved to New Orleans, even though I have family here. Um, I really haven't lived in this city in over 25 years. So one of the things that I have been intentional with doing is finding events online that are going to be nurturing and healing for me. So I make sure that even though I'm a yoga teacher, I go to a yoga studio that's a completely different style of yoga than what I teach, so that I can connect with other types of people in this wellness space, meaning in a yoga space that I love so much. So I selected a yoga studio that was in walking distance, making sure that I know that at least a couple of times a week, I'm going to get outside, go walk, connect with them. The other thing that I've done is that I've looked online for things that interest me. So I'm really into studying ancient culture. I love going to the museum. And so I try to make sure that if there's something happening at the museum, or just this past Sunday, I went to one of the like wellness holistic spots, coffee shop kind of vibe, one of their Sunday events. And I was like, oh my God, this is like going to church on Sunday. And it was my first time going, but it felt so good, because it's just like this beautiful collection of men and women. Very specifically, it was all Black women, Black men. And it was just nice to be in a really holistic space, especially in a city that gets a rap for, of course, part of the rap is
Yeah,
true.
party.
Party, sing, drinking, like that's not all I want to do. And it was funny
Yeah.
because I was actually scheduled to go to a Saints party because it was Saints weekend. I didn't even show up. And my family was at the Saints party. It
I don't
just,
even know what that means. What is the Saints
oh,
party?
because the New Orleans Saints. So
Oh, okay.
it doesn't matter.
I'm
Like
a
New Orleans
sports
Saints.
person, but then I didn't
Yeah,
know if it
yeah.
was like another kind of saint. So I'm
No. Oh, no, no, no. No, it's all football. But the thing is,
okay.
if it's an in-town game, the city's crazy. If they're out of town, the city's still crazy. Like people just go to a bar or go to someone's house, and then there's just a Saints party for game day. So it's game day. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll see you guys there. I never showed up because I had to go where my heart was pulling me. So
Mhm.
I think it's really important for people to identify what hobbies they love, what interests, things that maybe they're trying to learn more about. Like I was talking about the museum. I'm always like,
I
the
love
museum
all
is
that.
always going to have something that I don't know about. So
Hmm.
showing up, going with a friend, or just going by yourself because you're always
Learning
going
to go
to
by your,
meet
mhm.
somebody's going to talk to you.
Or you might just like enjoying
Or
something to yourself.
maybe you just want to show up by yourself and walk around and there are other people. So you're in community, but not in
Yeah.
community, Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just go, or go to the park. I tell people all the time, like I have a dog. So taking him to the park is also one of those little things. And sometimes I just randomly run into other people's dogs. I don't even introduce myself to the dog owners. They don't introduce themselves to me.
Yeah,
But
right.
the
The
dogs
dogs introduce each other.
the dogs are introducing each other. They do their thing. Usually us owners, we're just back, leaning back, letting the dogs do. And it's comforting.
I think a
So,
dog is a great example. Like I love mine, but I have a couple that I was thinking about too. So I
mhm.
turned 55 this past September, and I told myself, which I'm failing at miserably, but I told myself I was going to journal every day for my 55th year because I just feel like there's all this
Oh.
stuff going on. And in that process, it felt like a conversation with myself. Like I have other journals, my
Mm.
gratitude journal and different ways that I journal. I journal when I meditate. But like that daily practice, it it almost felt, I don't know, it felt like a conversation with a friend. So I think that
Yeah.
that's a great path for loneliness.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would say is finding your purpose. I feel so different. Like you've been on an entrepreneurial path longer than I am. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be a full-time entrepreneur to be walking in your purpose.
Mm-mm.
But once I started really actively walking in my purpose, I never really feel lonely. I mean, I've always been in my imagination anyway, so I probably was never that lonely. Like I could just whittle around in my head. I'm a writer, but
Mm.
having like that task, like where I have, for me, my focus is to teach 12 million people the 12 steps to mind blowing happiness. I'll never run out
Wow.
of things to do, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, do you feel like there was a shift from when you were doing the nonprofit work to when you really shifted into the work in yoga?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really fascinating because when you were talking about purpose, one of the things that I find is that my purpose was just living its way, or yeah, I was living out my purpose in different ways, I should say. So even when I was doing the nonprofit work, I was somewhat, I didn't know it at that time, but when I look back, I was like, I was living out my purpose. And my purpose wasn't like, oh, I need to become a yoga teacher, or, that definitely is not my purpose. My purpose is to be of service and help people be their best selves. And at the time, I was utilizing my nonprofit work in that way, because
Right.
what I did in the nonprofit arena is the organizations that I work with supported smaller organizations. So we were like a national organization that would go in and support. And when I became a yoga teacher and started teaching meditation and wellness, that's still my purpose. I just
You're
put a
walking
different
it in a different
I'm
way.
walking in it in a different way, or there's a whole nother package. Like even now, I don't own a yoga studio anymore like I did in DC, but I am still showing up in my purpose, but I'm allowing my purpose to express itself in a variety of ways and allow my creativity to come out through me walking in my purpose. It's almost like if you fully understand what your big, gigantic purpose is in life, the path of how you need to walk it will start to reveal itself. You're like, oh, that lane right now. And then sometimes you're like, okay, that lane is done. I'm going to turn to the left. I'm still walking in my purpose, but now I'm going to follow this path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love hearing people's journeys, because there's this thread, there's that thread that connects it. So
Mm-hmm.
you were supporting and helping people, and people saw that in you when you were at the nonprofit, and then you were able to kind of ripen or grow that seed
For that, yeah.
and take it further. And you still have plenty to go. So who knows what you'll be doing
Who
in
knows? Who
another
knows?
5 or 10 years.
Yeah, and it's interesting because literally before you and I got on this call today, I was somewhere else. I was at a bookstore in New Orleans meeting up with a woman from Sunday. So we connected on Sunday at the wellness center where we at the Sunday service we were having, and then now we're going to be collaborating. And so it's
Right.
like you
Yeah,
never
you
know.
never know. You never know. So just being open.
Just
All
being
right. So
open.
the next holiday issue that you might have is toxic family. Sometimes you may have pressure to
Mm.
spend time with family members that maybe were abusive to you or that you don't want to spend time with. Um, do you have any thoughts around how to handle those kind of situations or
Yeah.
how?
Well, I'm going to approach it a couple of different ways. Definitely, I want to tell people that if you know that it is going to be extremely physically or definitely extremely emotional, detrimental to your overall health and well-being, don't go. Like, don't
Gotta put
go.
my
That was
gotta
a
give
high
my praise,
five.
those are my praise hallelujah
Praise.
hands, but I had to drop my little note thing.
Like that is number one. If it's physical, if you know that every time you show up it's gonna get cray cray, and then you spend you've like if last year you spent another 3 or 4 days detoxifying,
Mm-hmm.
don't show up. Don't show up. Like save yourself. Put on your mask, breathe first before
I
you show up
100%
and
agree.
give all of you to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the capacity to show up, right, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, set some boundaries. And
Yes.
but boundaries may come in the form of the amount of time. So it's like, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to spend an hour, and I'm going to stick to that and make that commitment to yourself, because that's also practicing some radical self-love when you tell yourself, I'm committing to only staying an hour. All right, the hour is up, time for me to go. Love you guys, see you later, peace. And then within those frames of boundaries, again, if you need to leave because you're feeling triggered, upset, you can't handle, like if you're becoming too emotionally charged in that moment, set that boundary, get up and get out of there. Go do you. Like, even if that means I'm going to walk home. Like I've done that before where I'm just like, oh, this has been too much. It's just, I'm going to take a walk because that walk is going to help me
Mm-hmm.
decompress so that when I finally show up into my sacred space, my home, I'm feeling more grounded within me. So set some boundaries, time, energetic boundaries. Now, one thing I'm going to give people this really great practical tip to do. One thing that I always like to do is create, and we're talking about chakras, create a strong, vibrant aura. Do this not just on the day that you're going, but a couple of days before you show up. And it's not like, oh, I'm thinking about this, so I'm already creating the negative energy, because I know somebody's gonna probably say that, well, if you're thinking about something crazy is gonna happen, it's gonna happen. Well, no, you're just protecting yourself. So what I always like to do, I like to do aura sweeps. And basically I'm expanding and strengthening my aura with the power of my breath and the physical, coming back to that Kriya, right? Where we're
Mhm.
physically shifting. Now I'm going to shift the energy around me and create an energetic block, meaning I'm blocking the negativity out. So what I typically have people do is they bring their palms to their heart, right? And then on the
Are we
inhale,
going to do it together? Do we
yeah,
have,
girl, come on.
let's
That's why
do the
I
activity.
had to lean back because I needed some
Like,
space.
I'm ready. Look, I threw this note thing away. It's driving me crazy.
So you're going to bring your palms right to your heart, right? And then on the inhale, you're going to take the arms all the way up. And then as you exhale, you're going to fan down. And you're just
You
going to
breathing through
repeat.
your nose?
Yeah, in and out the nose. Yeah. In through the nose, out through the nose. So inhale up, exhale, fan down. Now, as you're doing that, you can keep your eyes open to close, doesn't really matter. But as you do that, you're mentally thinking, okay, each inhale, I'm drawing the energy from the earth, is coming up through my spine, that Kundalini rising. And as you go, we're going to the crown of my head. And when I exhale, that energy is expanding and reaching outward. You just kind of repeat that as many times as you feel like you need to. So it's really even being really self-aware around what you need. So if you want, you can wake up in the morning and do this a couple of days prior. If you want to incorporate this into your own personal practice, right? Sometimes it's just good to do from time to time. Sometimes I'm in my kitchen, I'm like,
I like it. So what is the name of that? Is there a name for that?
aura sweeps. You're just kind of
Or a
sweeping,
sweep? All right.
just sweeping the aura. But
I
you're
like it.
even the exhale, you're like even cleansing the aura, right? Our aura has the capacity to reach up to 9 feet beyond our physical body.
Wow.
9 feet. So if you're constantly breathing consciously, powerfully every single day, you're like pulsating that aura. It's getting stronger and stronger. Yeah. And then this is just like an added touch.
And sometimes going into a toxic environment, you just need to crack the door to feel the negative energy.
Yeah. You're like, oh, snap. I have to walk up in
Oh
here.
man. So getting your aura all warmed up is probably the way to go. But I will say your responses, I could not agree more. You know, I had my notes about things that I might want to add, but that's really it. It's being able to say no. You
Say
don't have to go.
no.
And if you decide to go, having those boundaries, you know what? I'm going to go for my mom or whoever, I'll show up.
Yeah, that's
I'll be
real.
there for an
Yeah.
hour,
Yeah.
bring the
Yeah.
sweet potato pie, and then I'm going to, you know, I'm bring the pound cake or something, and then I'm going to leave. Or even, better what you said, if I get there and I crack the door and that energy is really wonky, it might be 20 minutes. It
It might be, yeah.
may,
Yeah.
yeah.
And not feel guilty about it because you know you are protecting you. And that's what's most important. And
Yeah.
it's not
You
and it's
should,
not a selfish act.
I mean,
It's
to
not
me,
a,
you should be your first love.
absolutely.
And when you have a sense of meaning and purpose in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that there is something that you are called to do, you have to protect yourself so you can do whatever that thing is.
Absolutely.
Whether it is just taking care of a garden or a baby or a dog or it could be some entrepreneurial venture or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, nurturing, whatever what grounds you in this world,
Absolutely.
whether it's something that seems like a smaller purpose or a bigger purpose, we all have a reason to be here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we got to protect ourselves. Otherwise, we can't be of any use to anyone.
No, not at all.
All right, so the third thing that I have, we talked about a little bit already, which was losses, and you talked about your father. Um, my sister passed away on Christmas Day.
Mm.
Gosh, it's so many years now. Gosh, it's 30 years.
Wow.
She my gosh, time is flying. It was 1993. So yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, but whether it is you know, I guess anytime somebody dies, you know, um, what do you do with that loss? Some of the notes that I had for me, because I practice Buddhism, is that we
Mm-hmm.
have a poa practice. But a poa practice can be very similar to having an altar, you know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, so I like to speak to my family members who are no longer with us.
Hmm.
And I feel like I can do that anytime. I'm also a fan of Gabby Bernstein. I don't know if you follow her at all, but she has a meditation for speaking to your ancestors
Ancestors, yeah.
that I really enjoy. Um, do you have any other thoughts around that? I know we touched on it a
Yeah.
little bit, but specifically anything
Absolutely,
around death?
absolutely. Well, for me, I think it's really important not to, well, we have to go through all the different stages of grieving once someone transitions. But once you kind of like move through those stages, I think it's a beautiful thing to actually create your connection, and I call it the connection ritual with your ancestors, whatever that may look like, right? It comes in different forms. I love images, and so I have images and pictures of my brother, my dad, and whatnot that are really close to me. And then I'm always open to the spiritual reminders of when they need to speak to me. And when I say open, I may smell something and it reminds me
Mm-hmm.
of my dad, or I may see something, or even sometimes I'll see a person and they may say a word, or they may have like a resemblance to my brother, and I'm like, oh, thank you for showing up today, right? And so, and even acknowledging when that happens, when they do show up randomly in different moments in your life. The other thing I feel that you kind of mentioned it is even just having those conversations with them, and it may be moving through a meditation, or even I teach actually ancestral breath work. And
Hmm.
so in the ancestral breath work is that we tap into our ancestors and ask them for their guidance and assistance, because they're always there and present, and they're always connected and watching, but they're also in this beautiful ethereal realm, right? The spiritual realm where they want the best for us.
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, that's my belief. It's like they're up
Me
there
too, yeah.
cheering. They're
And
they're
they come when you call them. If you're
Yes.
open, then
If you're
mhm.
open. So calling on them and saying, you know what, I'm struggling right now, and that's okay. Sometimes it's just like, can you just watch over me and provide me strength? Um, or can you provide me with show me the path? And you'll be surprised what they can assist you with. But most important, having that connection and relationship to them is just like, I see you, I feel you, and acknowledging that their presence is always around you is a really beautiful thing. Yeah.
It's funny you talked about a fragrance or something that might remind you of an ancestor. I was experiencing something. It stopped a little bit. It stopped a little bit now, but maybe about 4 weeks ago, I had to have cream of wheat. Okay. I don't know if you grew up eating cream of wheat. I hadn't had cream of wheat in decades, like forever. And something was like, I got to eat cream of wheat. I started eating cream of wheat like every day. And I was like, okay. I said, okay, grandma. Well, I call her mama. I said, okay, mama, I hear you, And while I've connected with other ancestors, I didn't feel like I had a stronger connection with her, you know.
Mm.
And then I connected with her. I just felt like she was talking to me. I actually wrote about it because I wrote an article, with everything going on with Israel and Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote an article about that. And I always remember when I was a little girl, I grew up in the household with my parents and my grandmother.
Mm.
And she said, I can hear her accent. She was from St. Lucia. I can hear her shrill accent now. And she said, they took those people's land. They need to give their land back.
Mm.
This was probably in the 80s. She said this for me.
Mm.
And I didn't even really, I was young. Like, I didn't even really know much about what they were talking about. But, the Middle East thing was
Yep.
around for such a
Yep.
long time. And it was almost like she was trying to tell me something. I don't know. So, yes, they speak, and they speak through smells and maybe through cream of wheat
Through
or
creamery,
grits.
it's
You never
it's well,
know.
it's funny because I have a dear friend that's and well, her and I met her through her best friend. And so her best friend transitioned during the pandemic. And from time, and my friend, she's vegetarian,
Okay.
pescatarian,
I'm vegan,
vegetarian.
so
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if
yeah,
you know that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she goes, girl, I had to eat some fried chicken last night.
Oh,
I was like,
okay. She got hit with the spirit of fried
I
chicken.
was like, why? She goes, you know why? And I'm like, oh, Victor.
Now, wait a minute, who's Victor?
Victor was our mutual friend. And
Oh,
when he shows up, like that was his dish of choice. And she's like, he came to me, you know, I was just having like a nice little dialogue in my head. We were in meditation. And she's like, over the past couple of days, I've just been craving chicken. And I was like, did you eat some? Yeah, I ate some.
broke down.
She's like, I was honoring his presence. And see, yeah, she's like, after I ate it, I didn't want it anymore. And I was like, you know, who knows? So
Yeah,
you never know how they're gonna show up.
how they will show up. Okay, so the last one that I had that I mean, I wanted to tell this story because people have financial issues sometimes with the holidays,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you have young kids.
Mm.
And when I was preparing to talk to you, I was remembering one year, I got my daughter her very first cell phone. It was this little pink flip phone, but it was a rough year. And I got it because I didn't have to pay for it. It was one of the ones where you could like put a new line for 2 years or something like that back in those days, and you got the free
Yeah,
phone.
fruit foam. Yep.
Yes. And it was like like she was the first kid to get her phone and it was the best gift ever or whatever. So I just thought it was funny. Sometimes when money is tight, you got to be creative.
Yes.
Any any thoughts around how to be spiritually fly when the coins are not lining up?
Hey, I've been there too. I mean, I think that's really important because especially during this time period, this season, right? Is like if you feel like the money's just pouring out, like you're like, well, I don't even have any to pour. I can't give any. So the thing that I think you hit the nail on the head with that is like you just have to be creative when it comes to your way of giving, sharing through the holiday season is sometimes it's your words, right? There is nothing more beautiful and powerful than a, a poem. That don't cost nothing, just your
I hear I
thoughts.
argue with my daughter about that. She's like, I don't care. I'm like, all I want is for you to write me a poem so I can post it on Facebook and let everybody see how much my daughter loves me.
That's me. Give me a poem. Give me a
Oh,
poem.
girl.
I need that poem. So that I mean, that is always just like really, really creative. And you know, if you have the means to make a really delicious meal, right? And it may not even be the whole meal. So if you are going over to a family member's house, sometimes, they just contribute to the potluck, you know? Um, if it were me in this instance where it's like, oh, you know what? My contribution to the family this year is going to be a moment of meditation, of a moment of positive energy, right? And maybe you create a new ritual or a new ceremony for your family of, you know what? Instead of us, maybe doing something what we normally do, well, how about we like gather in a circle or we go for a moment for a family walk, try something like, and I'll lead the walk. I'll figure out where we're going to go. And when we get there, maybe we'll pause and honor our ancestors. And that's the gift that doesn't cost anything. So just being super, super creative when it comes to not having the means to, if you can't buy all the gifts, like who cares? The gift is that you guys are present on this earthly plane with each other in this moment in time. That's the biggest gift.
I love that. And I talk, one of the steps to mind blowing happiness in my book, the sixth step actually, is generosity. But it's
Mhm.
not financial generosity, it's giving your time and your talents, which is
Absolutely.
exactly what you're talking about. You know, organizing a walk or leading a meditation, or, and like that, the meditation in particular could be your talent, but for someone
Mhm.
else, it could be singing a song,
Singing a song.
it could be
Yeah,
leading a
yeah,
dance, it could
yeah.
be,
Or even,
reading a
it's interesting
poem or
reading a poem, or, one thing that just popped into my head is like, some people, I'm not one of those people, but some people are really crafty in the kitchen, like super crafty. So how about you gather up all the children and then teach them how to make that sweet potato pie? Like, I remember just my grandmother obviously showed up, because I remember my grandma, when she would like make all her sweet treats, we would just be in the kitchen with her and like, you know, pulling together the flour and pressing, mashing the butter and like stuff like that. And that was always just like so amazing. So if the kitchen is your gift, invite
there's so
some,
many ways to do
yeah,
that.
invite the
Yeah.
family members, the kids in to experience how you make your specialty dish.
I love it. So let me see, we covered loneliness, toxic family, losses, as in death in the family, or death,
Mhm.
dealing with death. We covered the financial issues. So we got everybody all taken care of. Now, suppose
Absolutely.
they're not dealing with any of those kind of issues, and it's just like going into a regular holiday season. Do you have any, I don't know, recommendation for like how we could just be spiritually fly on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, well, I always say one of the biggest ways, and I do it every single day, and I don't even know how many years I've been doing it. It escapes me, but coming back to that gratitude piece, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it sets the tone for your day, and I typically wake up in the morning, place my hands on my belly, one on my heart, and I'm just like, dear God, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all. And I name names, and I name people that are still in, on this earthly plane with me. And I also still say the same names of people that are not, so that I'm even honoring them. So it's like practicing that
I like
aspect
that.
of gratitude, right? So it's like I say their names, and then I move into any intention. So if I'm thinking about, I'm trying to manifest something, or there's a goal or something I'm really want to achieve, then I allow myself to go into the state of visualizing myself already in it. So then that takes like maybe like another minute or two. And then my feet roll off the bed. I grab my dog. I do my dog thing. I do the mama thing. So taking care of him, but throughout the day, what I feel is really important for me to stay spiritually fly is sound. Like music is always present in my life, and so the next step that I move into is like I cut on my speakers, and I select the music and the vibe that I need to support me as I move through the day. And every day it may, sometimes it's the same track, or it may shift depending on my vibes. And then reminding myself throughout the day to breathe and have patience. Because even though I may have my day planned, things shift. Life will change in a blink of a moment, and I don't have full control. I can only plan, but I don't have control. So giving myself the time to breathe, to be patient, and offer up grace to both myself and anyone that I may come in contact with, because I don't know what's going on in their lives. Yeah.
You gave us the whole template. I'm going to just say it back to you so everybody catches that. So you're going to put one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, wake up with gratitude, say the names of people that you appreciate living on this plane and those who are gone. Set your intention for the day. Make sure you got that right playlist going, so you got the right music for your vibe, and make sure to breathe throughout the day and stay patient, because you don't control everything. I think that I did pretty
That's
good.
it.
That
That's
was
it.
great.
Yeah.
That
And then
was great.
whatever else you're gonna add to the mix is based upon what you need for that day. But
But
that's like a consistent thing. Like that. That's it.
that was a great recipe. It's
Yeah.
like you got the main ingredients in the bowl, and then if you want to add a little sprinkle here and there, you can. but that I think was excellent.
Oh
So
my
do you have
God.
any, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just like, oh my God, I'm so glad you wrote that down. I'm like, oh yeah, I do that every
Like, what
day.
did I
Oh, okay.
say?
Yeah, thank you.
So do you have any projects that we should know about? I know you have online yoga on the app. You've got some
Mhm.
trips coming up. Anything you want
Yeah.
to tell us about? I'll put links in the show notes as well, but
Okay. Yeah. So, well, the next couple of things that are happening is, of course, I have my app, Elevate by Faith, and you can go to my website and find all the information about that, or simply download it from the Apple or Android store, or Google Play, whatever it
and
is.
on so on the app, do we get you like a few times a month? How does that work?
Yeah, so of course they're all pre-recorded classes. Right now I have 4 workshops that are based on practices that are in from the book, and I'm going to record another group of them this week and next week so that we can have something fresh for the new year, a new workshop that is. And then I also host anywhere from 1 to 3 live sessions inside of the app. So you go into the app, I may do a meditation. Last week, I have this new live that I do the first of every month. It's called Soul Scribes. So you get in a little breath work and then hear your journal prompts. And so I usually offer people journal prompts for the month. And so it's a collection of journal prompts. The other thing is that as I go into 2024, I am in the process of planning some retreats. So I already have one retreat that we are going to finalize this week, that's happening in March 9th or March 8th through the 10th, which is going to be in New Orleans. So it's total sacred healing, sound, vibration weekend that will take place in New Orleans. That's one of the reasons I was finalizing some stuff today with a potential partner. And then in May, I am going to the Art of Living. So the weekend of Mother's Day weekend, I am doing a feminine essence weekend, nurture your soul. And so that will be 3 days at the Art of Living in North
And that's
Carolina.
North Carolina, right?
Boone, North Carolina.
Mhm.
And so that's happening. And then I'm in the process also of planning a retreat to
Bloom? Where's
Tulum,
that?
Mexico.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, and it's gonna be like a quick trip, so it'll be like 5 days, so in
Mhm.
the process of hopefully finalizing that in the next week. That will happen, late summer, so sometime late May or June, and then I am also talking to, an amazing potential partner in Africa, and I will probably be going back to Zanzibar sometime in October or November of 2024, which I'm so excited about because
Yes.
I miss Zanzibar so
Oh
much.
my gosh. We were in Ghana at the beginning of this year, and I cannot
Mm,
wait to go back. So I didn't have Zanzibar on my list though. We're gonna have to talk about Zanzibar.
girl, like it's seriously, if somebody said,
Like I wanted to not come back, honestly.
I was about to say, like, if somebody told me like, so we had this house here, you want to stay in it? Yeah.
As
I,
long as my internet is good, I could be anywhere.
I'm like, like it's wild. Like it's people that have, I mean, and I've traveled, I'm sure you've traveled all over the world. I've traveled so many different places. And I have to say, there are only a very select few or small number of places where I feel grounded and rooted.
Mm,
And being in Zanzibar is like one of those places. Haiti is one of those other places where I visited. I mean, there's lots of um, things happening there and lots of unrest, but the moment that I went, or I went twice actually, it just felt so grounded. And I think part of it is that those places are so connected to my personal roots. I mean, it only makes sense.
that's like how I felt when I
Who my
landed
people are.
in
Yeah.
Ghana. It was like my blood pressure went down. It was like I had the deepest exhale of life. I didn't even know that I was that wound up until I
Yeah.
got off the plane.
Yeah.
So it was almost like realizing that you've been wound up your whole life because you're kind of in a hostile situation. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah. And then
yeah.
how can people
Yeah.
find you?
So the easiest way to find me is my website, faithhunter.com. And on there, you'll see all of the other links, all the social links and whatnot from Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I'm on TikTok, but not
Are you
really on TikTok.
TikToking?
Girl,
I have
not
to follow
much.
you 'cause
I
I'm a
got like,
terrible
I
TikToker.
probably like 10 people on there. But I mean, but it's really interesting. I mean, I post stuff on there, but it's interesting.
Okay, so
I,
you can,
I
well,
I just do me. I don't know what I just
I've had
do me
social
on
media
TikTok.
managers and it just never works out because I don't know, maybe one day I'll grow up and get it right. But I do feel like I just want to be myself. And then when they start getting involved, it doesn't feel like me anymore. So I hear you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
flutter from
yeah. And people ask me
place to
sometimes.
place.
They're like, "Do you have a social media manager?" I was like, "No, I manage
Listen, you don't have
myself."
one either.
No, no. I mean, part of it is because I coming back to that purpose is like I want to make sure that people are hearing from me,
Your real voice. Yes.
my voice. I mean, yeah,
Yes.
somebody else can figure it out and craft it in a certain way, but when it comes to my personal platforms, I've never had anyone else manage it. Now, when I've had businesses, those, I let go of those and let other people manage it because those businesses have their own energy and their own voice. But my
Mhm.
personal platforms are all mine.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much, Faith, for being here with me and having this conversation.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'll be glad to come back a second, third time.
Okay, be
Just chat.
careful now. Be careful.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it was a great conversation. So I hope that you all enjoyed listening to this episode of the Mind Blowing Happiness podcast. You can visit TrishAgelRoberts.com to book a call with me and learn about my books, coaching, retreats, workshops, and keynotes for you and your organization. Let's turn fear into love.
Mm.
Bye-bye.